gamers. Today, that's right, another tier list. This time for Nomad. So this is something that I get asked very often, especially for you guys in YouTube. Which civs are the best in Nomad free-for-alls? Now, we are playing Octagon Nomad Regicide Tournament, which Aussie Drunk is hosting every weekend, so you can tune into those. But those have a little bit of different rules. So what I'm going to make a tier list is based on, you know, just standard Nomad free-for-all. You spawn with 3 villagers, and that's it. Mega random, of course. Not pre-made maps. This is Nomad mega random free-for-all. I was just discussing with the chat, like, what do we base this on? Like, do we base it on the late game? Do we base it on trading? Do we base it on how good the civ is if you're alone? Right? Because different civs act differently if they're next to people and in a way. So what I tried, or what I'm going to try to do, is make a tier list based off of all of those things combined. So how good is the civ when you spawn alone? How good is the civ when you get to the late game? How good is the civ early game? How good is the civ defensively? How good is the civ offensively? Offensively means, like, if you make a wonder, is it easy to defend it or easier than other civs? Offensively, how easy it is to attack with that civ and actually do, you know, a lot of damage, whether it's in mid game, late game. And last but not least, how good the civ is if you spawn next to someone, like trying to survive or kill your opponent. Like, in general, how to survive as long as possible or have the chance to kill the opponent next to you. So I try to take all these in consideration. Again, you know, assuming sometimes we have water maps, sometimes we don't have water maps. Although I would say Nomad, the water bonuses are not as important as in like 1-on-1s and 2v2s. But like I said, I try to take everything in consideration. So here it is. First, we're going to start with Delhi. So there used to be a meme on my stream with Delhi, because Delhi used to be a civ that I get all the time. And it was quite bad. But I don't think it's that bad anymore. In fact, I don't think Delhi is the worst civ you can get. Now, Delhi is probably the worst civ you can get in the early game, because the upgrades take a long time. The age up is not as fast. The water is not great early on, right? So all those things are not great for Delhi. If you're left alone, you can boom just like any civ. You can make a bunch of TCs and, you know, just kind of go for it. The strength of Delhi, I would probably say Nomad free-for-alls, is Compounded Defender, because it makes your stone cost buildings be 20% cheaper. It used to be 25%, now it's 20%. And that's also really good because of keeps. Now you can also boom with keeps, right? You can rush castle, get compound, and make a bunch of keeps and get the TCs out of that. Your wonder is cheaper, but the biggest strength of Delhi is probably the elephants in the late game. They used to be very mediocre, but when we had the last big patch, the elephants got buffed quite a bit. So if you manage to secure late game with Delhi and have enough gold, actually massing mass elephants is incredibly strong. Like incredibly strong. Where they just tank really well. The war elephants destroy cavalry. So there's potential for that. But attacking with Delhi is a little bit rough, because if your main unit is elephants, they're pretty slow. But you do get all your upgrades for free, which is not the greatest thing in Nomad, because you usually have a lot of resources. So that's why Delhi is a C tier. So yeah, the next civ we're going to be talking about is Abbasid. And Abbasid, I used to think Abbasid is a lot better. Like I used to think Abbasid is like A tier, like pretty good. But when I do get Abbasid and Nomad, I'm not like, oh no, I got Abbasid, you know, I'm gonna lose or something. I think Abbasid is more than fine. It's just kind of there, if that makes sense. I think Abbasid early game is probably a bit better than Delhi, because you can make rams faster. So sometimes you can rush, like you could potentially open military wing, make a ram immediately and kill people's docks and stuff like that, which is very strong and annoying for the opponent. So you can get like water if you're on the same side. Obviously docks are cheaper, so you can go for water boom a lot easier. If you go eco wing, you can go for a lot of TCs. Or if you get some scouting done and there's no one near, you can even go for early trade. So it has a lot of options, The reason why it's a B tier, not higher, is I feel like it has no obvious strengths, right? It's not like those are the strengths and those are all kind of bonuses, but they're not like, oh, if you meet Delhi, you're screwed next to them. They do have a lot of options, and I feel like they can be played from any type of spawn, but they're not really best at anything, if that makes sense. But camels are really strong in the late game. The camel archers are super, super strong. The fact that House of Wisdom is like the only landmark except TC is not that big of a deal, to be honest. With Abbasid, you just gotta make sure you're near in the corner so that your House of Wisdom can be backed up a little bit, you know, farther away so you don't get sniped. But your House of Wisdom has insane amount of health, and in a way, I prefer sometimes House of Wisdom over having 4 landmarks, or 3 landmarks, I guess, because it has so much more health. The opponent has to completely overwhelm your army in order to kill it. Like, they can't just arrive with 20 fire lancers or burn it down. Like, that's not going to happen. So, I think Abbasid is B tier. I think late game it's strong. There are stronger civs, and it's okay defensively and okay offensively. So, overall, not bad. The next civ we're going to be talking about is going to be, let's just get the obvious out of the way. It's China. China has always been the best civ in Nomad free-for-alls, or free-for-alls in general. And there's so many reasons for it. I feel like there should be an S+++ tier. Like, there should be an S++, S++, S++++, and China would probably be here while every other civ is in A tier. I feel like that's how much better it is compared to the other civs. The reason for that is, well, it's extremely hard to kill in Feudal because of Barbican. It's the best booming civ. If you're left alone, you can get batshit insane amounts of villagers. It's the best civ in the late game. One of its landmarks is a 2 fucking nest of bees shooting. The other landmark gives you vision of all the villagers on the map and gives you massive vision range. They have more landmarks. They have 3 more landmarks than any other civ, so it's incredibly hard to, you know, snipe their landmarks. Especially because one of the landmarks is counted as a stone wall. So even if you also have fire lancers, you cannot kill the stone walled gatehouse either. They have hand cannoneers, which have 1.5 extra range. So if you put them on walls or just fight with them, they're insane. They got fire lancers, which they're the best unit for Nomad FFAs. They can snipe landmarks super easily or just kill everything in the way. They can kill keeps. And they have the best siege in because their siege has extra health. So if you're slowly building up siege over time, you're just going to have siege with batshit amounts of health. And they get taxes. So even if you spam free units like spearmen and horsemen, you will actually accumulate so much gold that you're going to just have gold. So yeah, I mean, it literally doesn't have a weakness. Not to mention, if you want to commit to castle pushes with China, you can just spam palace guards and run them everywhere. Because nomads are usually hard to wall off. So if there's someone close to you, you can Barbican rush them. You can rush castle into palace guards. It's just the best civ. And usually in Nomad free-for-alls, people try to kill China early because of this. And if China is left alone like one side of the map, you're going to have a bad time. So I feel like that's kind of like an obvious one. Next one we'll be talking about is French. Psych. French is A tier. I think French is really good Nomad free-for-all civ. It has a couple of strengths. Strength number 1 is you can see the markets at the start of the game, and this is very, very strong. I know this in one-on-ones this is useless, in 2v2s this is useless, even in 3v3s and 4v4s it's probably useless. But in Nomad, being able to see where the markets are from the moment you spawn can make you choose your spawn point so you know where you can start trading immediately and kind of play off that information. That's number 1. Number 2 is, well, cavalry is the strongest thing you can do in Nomad FFAs, and they can start spamming knights in Feudal, and their cavalry is second strongest behind Ruse with Boyar's Fortitude. So their cavalry is incredibly strong in region health. And probably the strongest reason why, actually there's 2 more. Third reason why French is so good is because of Red Palace and the recent balance change we have had, where if you make a Red Palace, all your town centers and keeps get the crossbow attack, which is insane. Like, your keeps become keeps on steroids, and your town centers. So defending with French in the late game is incredibly easy and incredibly strong, while you also have a really strong attack if you're massing knights. All you gotta do is break the walls and get in there. Their trade is really strong, especially because you get that little boost from Chamber of Commerce by making a couple of free of them. And then, last but not least, probably the reason why I think French is A tier is because of Guildhall. French is one of the very few civs in the game that can still gather stone passively, or gather stone by not buying it or not mining it. And that is Guildhall. You can set your Guildhall to stone. In the last match that I played in Outback Octagon, I think I got like 18 or 19,000 stone total from my Guildhall throughout the game. So not only I afforded Wonder, I also made like 12 keeps, 10 keeps or something like that. And your keeps, I forgot to say, reduce the cost of your knights. So it's a pretty good civ. All right, it's a pretty good civ. Next one we'll talk about is, let's do Mongols. I don't think Mongols is S tier. I used to think Mongol and China are equal. I don't think so anymore. And by the way, this is like, in my opinion, kind of tier list. Some players might have different tier lists. I think Mongol is A tier because they have no walls. And obviously walls in a way are easy to break, but it is a disadvantage. And Mongols actually have something similar to China, Fire Lancers, which is horsemen with the burning buildings upgrade. It's not quite as strong as Fire Lancers, but it's something. And I would probably say the three biggest strengths of Mongols are being able to early trade. That's number one. Number two is being able to move your town center or just move all your buildings. Because if you get a bad spawn, well, Mongols can literally just run away to another place and you can survive and kind of boom from then on out. Most civs don't have that advantage. And then number three, which is going to be the White Stupa and the upgrade in Ubu that allows you to get stone every time you burn a building. Now, why is this good? Same like French, and why I went Mongols right after, is getting stone in Nomad FFAs at a point becomes incredibly hard. Mongol doesn't actually need stone for Wonder, so making Wonders with Mongols is very easy compared to the other civ. It's probably the easiest civ to make the Wonder with because you only need 3 resources, although a bit higher. But the White Stupa will give you passive stone income, and if you get the upgraded on Uvu, that'll every time you burn a building you also get stone. Not only you can burn the alive players' buildings to get stone, but whenever someone is eliminated, you can send 30 horsemen and shift queue on their buildings and get the stone from burning them. So the amount of bombard towers you can get with Mongols is absolutely insane. Even though they don't have a lot of health, they will be able to defend you for insanely long amounts of time. So if you go Wonder plus you got a lot of stone from that, that's pretty good stuff. Also, yeah, it's hard to raid Mongols in a way if they have towers because of the movement speed throughout the whole base. So yeah, you get it from the dead players. Yep, anytime you burn a building, even if it's a dead player, you will get the whatever it's called. It's not bounty, it's pillaging, or whatever it's called. Next one we'll be talking about is Ruse. Now Ruse, it has a bit of a slow start. Hunting cabins costing 100 wood is problem, and also their ships costing 150 wood is or can be a problem because in Nomads you have a little bit of a slow start. Now the great thing about Ruse is there's insane amount of deer to kill, insane amount of wolves, so you're like almost guaranteed you're gonna have 300 plus bounty or bounty as some people like to say. The weakness of Ruse is their biggest strength is probably getting the extra ram upgrade they have in the H4 landmark, and then their rams are batshit insane. The biggest weakness is that you cannot go that landmark. You have to go Spasskaya Tower because Spasskaya Tower unlocks stone walls. So, and Spasskaya Tower is an H4 landmark that's just a keep with extra health. So in order to actually play Ruse in Nomads, you have to go Spasskaya for stone walls. Otherwise, the Fire Lancers are gonna tear you a new one. Their H3 landmarks, so-so, right? High Trade House can be good, but in general, not great. The best thing about Ruse is the amount of passive gold you can get from building hunting cabins everywhere. You can probably get relics somewhat quickly. Their ships are really good, fishing ships, if you get to that point. And Streltsy, obviously, in the late game are crazy good. It's kind of B tier. I personally even prefer Abbasid over Ruse. Like, in my opinion, Abbasid might be even worse than that, but I do think they have strong feudal and castle because they can get so many knights because of so much gold they get from hunting. Abbasid is like, they have a slower start but better late game in my opinion, and Ruse has better start but weaker late game. Because Abbasid camels are crazy good. Alright, next one we're going to be discussing is Malians. Now, I always thought Malians is the worst civ, but I actually played it recently. And if you go Griot Bara landmark, you can make it so that your scouts do extra 50% bonus ignite or burn damage. And if you do that, you can kind of get your own fire lancers for 30 seconds. And it's not that bad. Also, Malians get a lot of passive gold from the gold pits. And Age 2 landmark also gives you not only passive gold, but you can get passive stone. So that's pretty good, right? It's not a huge amount of stone, but you can get some stone going. Now, feudal, I would say, is so-so for Malians. Like, it can be good. You know, you don't need a lot of food to go out on the map because you can make cows. If you get to castle somewhat quickly, it's actually one of the scariest civs to face if they're next to you, because they can kill you. They can kill you very quickly. Because if they rush castle, like in one-on-ones, they can kill you extremely quickly. But if you survive that, late game Malians is not the greatest. Like, I would say Delhi probably has a lot better late game, although it takes longer to get there. Malian can get to late game faster, but their late game is just not as good as some of the other civs. So I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I'd just say it lacks a little bit. The next civ we'll be talking about is Holy Roman Empire. Holy Roman Empire almost gets free relics in Nomads because no civ from these civs rushes castle and gets the relics. The map is huge. So HRE usually just rushes castle for free, gets the relics, and just has cathedral and batshit insane amounts of gold passively. Not to mention, they're very hard to all in early on because of the emergency repairs, so people don't really try to kill them super early. And they have Chapel, which is, you know, Chapel is always good. Their water's good. Getting early prelate and just their opener is really good. They usually don't want to fight in feudal, but if you get like water and just rush castle, it's incredibly strong. One of the biggest strengths of HRE is obviously the passive gold that you get from the relics. They also have spearmen that are easily spammable in the late game. They have man-at-arms, which have unique upgrades. They do more damage, which is easily spammable. But you can also, someone in chat mentioned, yeah, you can go mine work so you can get extra armor on horsemen, spearmen, and knights, because those are the units you spam a lot in Nomads. But probably the strongest thing about HRE, two strongest things, is number one is their emplacements are cheaper compared to the other civs. So you can actually make batshit insane amount of bombard towers with HRE, way more than with the other civs. But not only that, HRE has a unique upgrade in castle that gives them bonus, I think it's 40% extra health on walls and towers. So their towers, fully upgraded with a relic, gets something insane like 2.5k health, I think, or 2.4k health. One tower. And obviously you can put relics in your keeps and stuff, which is very, very good. And the last thing that makes HRE probably you know, the best thing about it is the Elsbach Palace. So you don't really want to go Swabia with HRE and Nomads because you can just make extra TCs, especially if you're alone. But if you make Elsbach's Palace, and if all your buildings are connected, all your buildings will take 33% less damage in the influence zone of the Elsbach Palace. So even if your Elsbach Palace is like here and your base is here, if they're connected, all buildings take 33% less damage, which is insane because your keeps and towers got 40% more health. So breaking HRE in the late game is insanely hard because their buildings, you know, when you push like Wonder, for example, you're supposed to destroy all the buildings. Not sure if that's how Elsbach works. Don't worry, that's why I'm here. and that's how it works. I get paid to play this game. Don't worry about it. So it's probably the best Age 4 landmark for Nomad in free-for-alls. Probably the best, because if Achery gets a wonder, you don't even want like keeps with Achery in the late game. You just make billion bomber towers, right? And in order to kill Achery's wonder, you need to kill their production. Otherwise, men-at-arms are going to keep popping. But you don't have time usually to kill all the production because everything's taking fucking no damage. And they got emergency repairs. You can also put a relic in Elsbeck Palace, which is a keep, and you can emergency repair it. So there's a lot of shit that Achery can do, and they're one of the strongest civs in the late game and the hardest civs to break. Now, what is their weakness? Like, why are they A tier, not S tier? Because all this sounds pretty good. Their ability to kill your opponents in feudal is almost non-existent. And you could rush Burger Palace and try to kill your opponents, but if you do Burger, then the whole point of HRE, which is Cathedral, kind of goes away, right? So if you go Burger, you can kill like a guy next to you, but then you're screwed later on. So HRE's aggression potential, not as high as some of the other civs, but yeah, you could definitely go Mine Work in Nomads for those bonus upgrades that they get. Now, another civ that is considered by S tier by many, but it is actually not, it is A tier, is English. Why is English A tier? Very strong early game, very strong late game, but their late game is very slow. And they are probably, together with Atria and China, the best civ at defending because of network of citadels and castles, but they're not that good attacking. Their strongest units are infantry, right? Longbows, hand cannoneers, men-at-arms with bonus armor. Those are like the units you want to make, but you don't really make them aggressively. You make them defensively, which is great, amazing. But if you're attacking with English and trying to break someone else's wonder, you usually go for knights. And knights in English is okay to go, but you don't have any bonuses for them. So English's economy is also great in the late game because of farms and they give gold and all that. But I always feel like you're kind of stuck with English in never-ending booming, and then you just have so many resources. And again, your units are super strong, but it's a little bit harder with English to take the map control than it is with French or HRE or Mongols. So if you get in a good spot, I would probably say it's best or second best together with China, like if you're alone and you're just booming. But if you're kind of playing to get map control and stuff early on, it's a little bit harder to do. Now, it is one of the second best civ, or second worst civ, I guess, to spawn next to, because English is incredibly hard to kill because of their TCs being like machine guns, and because of network of castles / citadels. So this is my least favorite civ to spawn next to because they're just so annoying to play against. Yeah, I mean, I think China is just in a tier of their own, and these four civs kind of, I would say overall are equally good. It just depends what kind of map you get, what kind of spawn you get, and so on and so forth. And the last civ, which is the worst civ in my opinion, is Ottoman. Why is Ottoman the worst civ? So many reasons. Their biggest thing in one-on-one is Mechter for the attack speed. It's so easy to kill Mechters in like big pop armies. One of the biggest strengths in Ottoman in one-on-ones or 2v2s are military schools. You get no value from military schools in FFAs because you either don't have time to make them in the early game because you're gonna die if you like wait for the free units to come, or you have military schools in the late game but you're pop capped all the time. If you guys ever played Nomad, you're constantly 200 supply and the units just don't come out of military schools. So the only other like strength, I guess you can say, that Ottoman has is the trading that gives a lot of gold. But in general, in Nomad FFAs, if you can trade, it doesn't matter if you're Ottoman or French trading or Mongol trading or Delhi trading, you're in a good spot already. You don't need that like extra gold value to make trade viable. As long as you're trading in Nomads on a good distance, you're gonna get crapped on a gold. The two unique things that they have is Janissaries, which you would think they are good in Nomad free-for-alls, and they are good defensively, But again, if you're attacking with infantry across the map offensively, it's just so slow, and you don't want to rely on infantry to be aggressive. And the second thing they have that is unique is the great bombards. And again, on paper, they're great. But when you play the game, like when Ottoman is pushing in the late game, it's scary as fuck. You got Janissaries, you got Knights, you got like 10 great bombards. And once that army dies, you're not remaking it. You cannot remake 10 great bombards just like that, unless you had an insane spawn. So your army is kind of like a one pump chump, you know? You go in there and you're out. And you either win or you don't. Meanwhile, you have civs like French that can spam Knights forever. You have Mongols that can spam Crab forever. Other civs, Siege is not as expensive. Technically, they could make Mangonels or Springles, right? But I'm talking about their unique unit. And overall, I think they just have no real strengths, right? Their strengths from 1-on-1 and 2v2 are, in a way, weaknesses in team games. In team games, also, Nomad, you don't really go for bombards and trebuchets anymore. If you guys were, watching the tournaments, people just go for mass rams. And any civ can make rams. Military schools, again, are not good. And Janissaries, I mean, they're very expensive, and you can just do, what's it called? You can just make spearmen in general. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it. I gotta run. Marine Lord's crying in the chat. I gotta go boost him in 2v2s, carry him a little bit. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks so much for watching. This is my Nomad free-for-all mega random tier list. And this is obviously, I mean, it's about to be May 2023. So if you're watching this in the future, maybe, China gets Omega nerfed. Who knows? If you're watching on YouTube, thanks so much for watching. If you're watching on Twitch, let's carry Marine Lord.